Bonnie and I had always loved adventures. She was the one who always found new places for us to explore, and this time her choice fell on a lake near a forest. She had heard about it from an old man in a fishing shop where we were buying bait. He cautiously told us that few people camped there because of strange rumors, but that only piqued Bonnie's interest. As usual, I went along with her enthusiasm, hoping for a peaceful night under the stars, lulled by the quiet lapping of the waves. We arrived just before dusk, as the sun began to sink, and the air was filled with the warm, sweet scent of pine trees. Something splashed lightly in the lake, making me tense for a moment, but I brushed it off. We set up our tent and lit a fire. Night came faster than I expected, bringing with it an eerie stillness. The lake seemed too calm for this time of night. The wind had died completely, as if the very trees were holding their breath.
Do you hear that?
Bonnie whispered, rising to her feet. Her face was pale in the dim firelight. Hear what I listened, but it was dead silent.
Over by the water.
She said, her eyes fixed in the direction of the lake, trying to make out something in the darkness.
It sounds like crying or maybe a moan. I'll be right back.
You're kidding, right? I tried to stop her, but she was already walking toward the water, not looking back. Seconds stretched longer than they should have. I stayed by the fire, alone, the silence pressing down on me, heavier and thicker than before. I stared into the dark, waiting for Bonnie to return, but instead of her silhouette, I heard something else's sharp, piercing scream. It shattered the quiet and made my heart pound as if it were caught in a vise of ice. I bolted toward the sound, shouting her name, but there was no answer, only a faint splash. The water. It seemed like she had gone into the lake. I reached the shore, scanning for any sign of her. There in the sand were her barefoot tracks, but they stopped abruptly at the water's edge, as if she had simply vanished. My mind refused to accept the worst, so I started searching the surrounding area. Armed with my flashlight, I decided to head into the woods, drawn by the faint cracking of branches. I thought maybe she had gotten scared and ran deeper into the forest. But what I found next was far worse. On the soft, damp ground, there were tracks, but these weren't hers. The footprints were strange, large, clawed, mingled with human steps, as if some creature had been carrying her. A cold, sticky fear wrapped around my thoughts. I had to find her, no matter what this was. The trail led me to a small incline where the underbrush gave way, revealing something like an old, overgrown entrance to an underground bunker. I stopped in front of it, breathing deeply of the cold air, bracing myself for something terrible. The entrance was half blocked by rubble and branches, but I managed to squeeze through. The darkness swallowed me, but I pushed forward. My flashlight cut a narrow beam through the blackness, and I began slowly moving deeper, scanning the walls. They were covered in deep scratches, as if something or someone had been kept here, desperately trying to claw its way out. Heavy footsteps echoed through the tunnel, stopping me dead in my tracks. I quickly hid behind a rock, shutting off the flashlight and holding my breath. The creature I glimpsed was massive, a grotesque parody of a human, but with long, thin arms ending in sharp claws. Its skin gleamed with a slick, wet film, and its eyes glowed faintly in the dark, a sickly green light. I waited until the thing moved out of the cave, and summoning every ounce of courage I had left, I dashed further inside. Bonnie was in here somewhere. I could feel it. The end of a narrow corridor. I found her. She lay on the floor, bound but alive. Her eyes were wide with terror, but when she saw me, relief washed over her face. We didn't exchange a word. I quickly untied her ropes and helped her to her feet. Quiet. It's close, I whispered. We started running back through the tunnels. Each step echoed in my head like a drum beat, but the sounds behind us were far more terrifying. It was coming after us, moving much faster than I had expected. Bonnie stopped for a second, and I nearly crashed into her. Ahead of us was the exit, but we weren't going to make it in time. The creature was almost upon us. That's when I noticed something that could save us: an old iron gate hanging on chains. Maybe it could block the entrance. I lunged for it, gathering every last bit of strength, and yanked hard on the chain. A deafening crash rang out as the gate slammed shut, sealing the way. We tore out of the cave, stumbling through the brush, not daring to look back. I didn't know if the thing had stayed underground or if it was still chasing us, but it didn't matter anymore. We were alive,